Hey guys, welcome to our weekly Friday video, and sometimes there's a bonus video on Tuesday, but today we are revisiting the Midi Emulator project. So let me demonstrate how this works, and I think you really like this project. So let's say we want to play some games using the Roland MT32. I've got some batch files. I just type in MT32 and the retro PC sends some MIDI signals to our MIDI emulator, and it's now in MT32 mode. So let's take a quick listen. That sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? So that's what DOS gaming was like back in the late 80s and early 90s, if you can afford it. And we all know that MIDI gear is expensive these days, so you can save a lot of money with this project. Depending on which hardware you go for, if you get a second-hand thin client, you can get the MIDI emulator going for under $100. Let's say you want to play some games that support the CM32L or the LAPC-I. Those are computer music modules that Roland came up with to cater for the gaming market. All you have to do is type in CM32L. A few MIDI commands get sent to the MIDI emulator, and we are now in the CM32L mode with those 33 extra sound effects. Now we gotta have a Roland sound canvas, of course, and Roland launched the sound canvas VA. So all we do is type in SCVA, press enter. It takes a little bit longer for the sound canvas plugin to initialize, so you just have to wait roughly half a minute, but then you can enjoy games in all its Roland sound canvas glory. But what if you're a fan of Yamaha? Well, I've got something special for you as well. We've got the Yamaha SYXG50 software synthesizer. Run the Yamaha command and the MIDI emulator initializes, and Descent is a game that sounds really good with this MIDI option. The MIDI emulator is compatible with any SF2 sound font. The only limitation is how much RAM you've got. You can use the Crisis sound font if you want, which is roughly a gigabyte. I'm gonna load my favorite sound font for Doom. SND font is my batch file. Let's check it out. And there are lots of other sound fonts you can check out. There is one that you might be very familiar with. It's the default Microsoft GS wavetable synth that's built into Windows. And we can also access that, type in MS-GS, and there you go. We now have the Microsoft GS wavetable. Now, I got this question in the past, and that it has to do with, is there any delay or latency? So here we are in Elite, and I'm just going to press the spacebar and let's have a listen. So if you're asking me, this is excellent, to be honest. I can't really pick up any noticeable delay, but yeah, let me know what you think. Now, with the MIDI emulator, with the hardware, you have quite a few options. You can go with a mini PC, a thin client, or even a tablet or a laptop. But in this video, to keep it nice and neat, and because we now have batch files, so we actually don't need to see what's happening on the screen, we're going to focus on going with either a mini PC or a thin client. Now, with the mini PCs, a 3-generation old mini PC will work just fine. The one I used for this project has an Intel Atom X5Z8350, and that worked fine. And anything newer like Apollo Lake or Gemini Lake, they will work just fine. Now, buying a brand new mini PC, financially it's not an option for everybody, so you can consider getting a second-hand thin client. And you have to be a little bit careful about these specifications. Initially, I went with a HP T5730 with a Sempron 2100 Plus 1 GHz processor, and I had partial success with Windows XP, but with Windows 7 the performance just wasn't good enough. So my recommendation, what you need to look out for, is any thin client, and that can be HP, it can be a model from Wyse, or one from Fujitsu Siemens. I think they go under the brand of Futro or something like that. It has to have an AMD G-Series APU, and they're basically 2 generations. We've got the older Bobcat, and that works fine, or the newer Jaguar core or processor architecture. Any APU that's from the G-Series, and you can Google that, will be perfect for using as a MIDI emulator. I will put links down below in the description for all the parts that you need to build such a MIDI emulator. Next, we're going to have a look at how everything connects up. I will use a slightly different thin client, that older T5730 that I mentioned before, so not the T610 that I've got here and that I recommend. So just keep that in mind. We've got the thin client here. This is my DOS Retro Gaming PC. I've got an AW64 Gold here on this machine. This is mostly for the sound effects and speech. I've got a Roland MPU41 Midi Interface here. These are RCA ports. These are just CD audio coming from the optical drive. And I believe I've got some sort of a Matrox card in here. I believe it's a G450 or something like that. So let's start with the MIDI output. So depending on the sound card, so if you're using a Sound Blaster, you need a gain port to MIDI cable. I will put a link down below in the description if you don't have one of those. The MPU41 cards, they usually come with their own MIDI cable. So we're looking for the MIDI out, and here is MIDI out. So this is a female MIDI DIN port. We now need a MIDI cable. So here we have a standard MIDI cable, male connector, so that goes in here. And we look at the other end. What have you got here? There's another male MIDI DIN connector. Now we need the USB MIDI interface for the thin client. So I've got one from Roland. Sells for around $50 to $60 or something like that. You can get cheap Chinese MIDI adapters off eBay. I recommend not to buy one. They work with general MIDI just fine, but not with the Roland MT32 emulator. So on this end, straightforward, USB. So that goes into the thin client like that. And then on the other hand, we have two male DIN connectors. One is input, one is output. Roland label it connect to MIDI in, so we don't need that one. Connect to MIDI out, we need this one. The problem is both are male, so we need a MIDI joiner. Looks something like this. It's got two female ends. I will have a look if I find a link for one of these. They're a little bit harder to find, and you basically just use that to join the two together. And we're almost done. We now just need an audio cable. So the thin client has an audio out here. If you're not happy with the sound quality from the integrated audio chip, which I found acceptable, to be honest, you can just get a USB DAC or sound card. So we take the audio out coming from here and we connect that into the line in of our Sound Blaster, and that's it in terms of setting up all the hardware. So it's not very complicated. You do need a few bits and pieces, but everything well under $100. And now let's have a talk about the software. So on the Retro PC, we need a bunch of batch files. So I added a directory to the path. What that does is it lets me run the batch files inside the MIDI EMU directory from anywhere on the operating system. So here we have a look at the batch files. It uses the MIDI data filer program, which can send these MIDI files to the MIDI emulator, which then has the Falcosoft Midi Player software running and switches between presets. And I just created batch files like MT32, CM32L to make it a little bit easier. I will make this resource available online as well. Plus the original resources from Falcosoft. Basically enough for you guys to pick this up and modify it to your liking. And this is the piece of software that makes everything possible, Falcosoft's Midi Player. And I can't recommend this program highly enough. Not only is it a good MIDI player, it can do all sorts of things. And for this project, it is really the best program out there that does everything under one program, including things like keyboard shortcuts and then using the batch files. I'm not aware of any other program that has all these features. Now there's a lot to this program and I don't want to do a full tutorial. I will put a link down below to some resources and documentation if you want to read up, but I'll just show you the basics. So let's go to this option here. And you can see it is configured for the Microsoft GS Wavetable synth. And I've ticked this box so that the input from the Roland UM1 MIDI interface gets taken from the Retro PC and then sent to Falcosoft. So now if I run a game on the DOS Retro PC, it will get sent through the Roland USB MIDI interface into Falcosoft and then play it with the Microsoft GS Wavetable. If you want to load a sound font, you click on this box here. It uses base MIDI and you can just load a sound font here. I also recommend a couple of tweaks down here. I changed the sample rate to the highest option and also changed the latency. I moved the slider all the way to the left to make sure the latency is nice and low. To get good audio quality, I'm using a USB DAC, and here I changed the mode to 24 bits and 192,000 Hertz of sampling rate. Now the process to get the MT32 Sound Canvas VA and the Yamaha going is slightly different. You have to use what's called a VSTI plugin, and you can see it's already configured here. Now you will have to load the ROM files here. They're also readily available on the internet. I will put links down below in the description. And you then have to, there's a stop play button, and you also have to tick these two options and then save the configuration under one of these plugin setting files. So I've got one for each of my VSTI plugins, and there's more. If you go here now, you will find some other options here. Only for the MUNT MT32 emulator, it is recommended to set the sample rate to 3200. I had a look in the documentation, and apparently this is the most accurate one. And the same goes for the Sound Canvas VA. This is also a VSTI plugin. We get a nice graphical representation. And yeah, that's basically how you set up the basics of the Falcosoft MIDI Player software. As I said, this is not a full tutorial. There's a lot to this software. One more thing I do want to show you. Let's say you set up one of your MIDI emulation options to your liking. You can press Ctrl-Alt-P, and this is where you can save your presets. You have to save them in the format shown with the 000 and then 001, 002, and so on. And these refer to those MIDI files that we had a look at on the DOS PC, those batch files. But like I said, if you struggle to set this up, have a look in the description. I will put in some links to some resources to help you set everything up. So guys, what do you think of this project? Like I said, we have done similar projects in the past, but the software is now more advanced. You have batch files on your retro PC that you can use to switch different presets on the MIDI emulator. You can also use a wireless keyboard and use keyboard shortcuts, but I feel that using batch files directly from DOS is hands down the easiest way to configure everything. And yeah, depending on which hardware you're going for, if you find a secondhand thin client on eBay, you just have to get the USB MIDI adapter and a few other bits and pieces, and it will be under $100 for a MIDI emulator. So the bottom line is, if you thought about getting MIDI devices but the price put you off, well, you will love this project, and anyone can afford to get into MIDI for DOS gaming, and it is really a huge difference. I know FM sounds lovely, but Roland MT32, yeah, many of us never experienced it back in the day. You would read about it in magazines and catalogs, and people would talk about it, and you would see the options in the games, but yeah, no one had one. None of my friends did. So this was really one of those personal dreams that I fulfilled myself a few years ago by buying all these MIDI devices. But yeah, prices have gone up now, and we always get new people coming into the retro PC gaming world. So I do my best to always have affordable options as well, not just trying to buy expensive and rare sought after items, and yeah, prices can be quite extreme. So I do my best to also give alternative options so that everyone can enjoy the wonderful world of DOS gaming. I will see you next week with our weekly Friday video, but do keep an eye out for Tuesday. Sometimes we will have a bonus video. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Give it a like and click on that notification bell. And I shall see you soon with another one.